The eternal search for the secret to slowing down the aging process is an arduous one, but there's a whole lot of truth that how you live your life and maintain your health is at the top of the list to aging well. So what else can we do to make sure that this process happens gently and slowly? To help give us some tips on this topic is NLP practitioner and nutritionist Nicci Robertson. Nicci, so nice to have you back with us.
Thank you, Mac.
Now, what does it mean to you to age gracefully?
So we can't stop the aging process. No amount of Botox is going to freeze us in this state of not progressing. And I think the thing to remember really is that we start aging, or the body starts going into preservation mode, not growth mode, from in your 40s.
Okay.
And it's like selling life insurance. You really can't sell life insurance to a 20-year-old because you don't have perception of aging. And I think nowadays as well, people don't age like they used to 100 years ago. You don't see those very obvious signs of people looking older. People are looking younger nowadays, but it doesn't mean they're healthy.
Yes.
And this really starts to take effect, especially with added stress and the environment that we live in. It ages the body much quicker. So we start declining even earlier than our 40s.
Okay.
But that's probably a good place to really pay attention to the things we talk about all the time. All these things that we keep repeating that we really need to pay attention to start really becoming obvious when you hit your 40s, unfortunately.
I like the way you say that you can't sell life insurance to a 20-year-old, because it really is like living in the here and now. It's all good, there's nothing wrong, and it's only when something's broken that you start to think, okay, hang on, maybe I should have done something differently. But now, Nicci, you mentioned stress in our environment, so let's talk specifically about the major factors that influence the way that we age.
Okay, so when I talk about stress, there's emotional stress, of course, there's financial stress, there's all those factors which we don't really have control over. There's also environmental stress as far as toxicity is concerned. So what we choose to eat stresses the body. So if you're eating a diet full of processed foods and sugars, that's creating stress on the body, and it is interrupting our ability to age well. So, but on the other hand, we've got what we call hormesis, which is stresses that encourage the genome to actually create an environment where we age well.
Okay.
So there's different kinds of stress, and some of them trigger aging, and some of them trigger, can't say anti-aging, because you can't anti-age, but to make your aging process less stressful on the system. So we've got stresses like exercise, fasting.
Right.
There's a couple of challenges like mental challenges which keep your brain young. So those are what we call hormetic stresses, which actually reverse the aging process or slow down the aging process.
Right.
But then we've got all these other things like hormonal instability, exogenous estrogens that cause a rapid acceleration of the aging process. Yeah.
So now let's talk about if we get to a point where suddenly we realize, sure, 40 and I haven't done quite well enough, I'm starting to see the impact. If you only start doing the right things at 40, can you, as you say, not going to reverse aging, but can you slow it down if you're only making changes then?
You can slow down aging at any stage in your life, even in your 80s. I've got a lot of ladies who come to me post 60 and they go, is it too late? It's never too late. Even tiny little changes at any age, your body responds really well to that.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be big things. It can be simple things like just paying attention to your sleep quality.
Okay.
I really believe that sleep is what underpins how well our bodies perform. Not only immunity, so immune health, but definitely aging. So there was a school of thought that said, well, as we get older, we need to sleep less. And that's been disproved many times.
Yes.
It's simply not the case. It's a case of being really attentive to our patterns of when we go to bed, having a routine. That's really important as well. So the brain loves routine. It loves to have, you go to sleep at the same time and wake up at the same time every day. That is really good for managing stress, but also managing the aging process on many levels. So that going with the circadian rhythms that are sort of naturally accessible to us, exposing yourself to sunlight, that is part of that homeostasis or the balance or the slowing down of the aging process. So there's a lot we can do in terms of, that doesn't cost a lot of money. You don't have to go out there and get expensive supplements or go and get, all these concoctions and collagens. And yes, you can, of course you can. But what really counts is paying attention to the small things. And that's really it's sleep, it's movement, exercise is pivotally important. It's probably not only your most natural antidepressant, but it's probably the one thing that really keeps you fresh and young, because if you don't use it, you lose it.
What is the right amount or the appropriate amount, sort of age-related, as you start to get older, that you need and is going to be useful without becoming also an overwhelming task?
Sure, I think that's such a great question, because at any age, if anything is overwhelming and it's a big barrier to entry, we're going to not do it at all. So 5 minutes of movement every day is better than nothing.
Yes.
And it really doesn't take a lot of time. 10 minutes a day is all that's really needed to create that hormesis effect, so that positive stress. So one of the best ways to exercise, in my opinion, and I've believed in this for years, is high intensity training. So you stress the body for a very short period of time and then you come back into a state of equilibrium. So something like marathon running is a huge stress on the body, and that actually can age you. Very few people can adapt to that kind of long-term stress, even at a low heart rate, even if it's long and slow and gentle over a period of time. For many people, that is an aging trigger. So what has been shown and proven time and time again is the effect of resistance training. So when we pick up heavy things, our muscles adapt, and that sets off a trigger of pathways in the brain that tells your body that you need to pull in the resources, that you're still young, that you're still functional, that you can still go out and hunt. That's what it's really telling the brain on a primal level. And the same works with high intensity interval training. So when we say high intensity, it's not scary, going to fall over, I feel like I'm going to puke.
200 kilograms bench press or something.
It's just enough to get your heart rate up. And the best way to think about it is if you can have a conversation while you're exercising, that's not intense. So you need to get to a point where you can't actually talk to a person who's with you.
So you're somewhat out of breath.
Just out of breath, a little bit more than somewhat. But for only like between 10 to 30 seconds. So it's a very short period of time. And that's what just gets that stress, the positive stress in the brain, and that triggers anti-aging, or anti-aging slows down the aging process because it's telling the brain that you're still alive and kicking. Really.
Absolutely.
And it's really, really good for the neurotransmitters in your brain. So we make serotonin, we make dopamine, not only in the brain, but in the gut. But exercise triggers that more than anything else does. So it's a really good way to solve problems. I mean, if stress is one of the reasons why we age, moving and the brain is adapted to solve problems in motion. So as we're moving, we can solve problems more efficiently, which is why when you go for a little run, you can think about things clearer.
Your head is literally clearer.
And it is very much linked to the aging process, although the body's ability to adapt and stay fresh and young and healthy.
Fantastic. So Nicci, let's do a couple of tips on aging gracefully.
So
it's something that we talk about, and it's not just about outward appearance. I mean, aging gracefully is a holistic idea, right?
So probably your best bet is to really cut back on the amount of sugar and alcohol that you consume, because that really breaks down not only the collagen in the skin and the structure of, and bearing in mind that it's not just the skin, it's the organs as well. So it inhibits blood flow to the brain. So your sugar is toxic, and your alcohol is even more toxic. So being conscious of cutting back on sugars and alcohols is very, very important if you want to not only look good, but be able to function mentally and physically into your older years. As far as supplements are concerned, I think your most important as we age is magnesium, because of it's really important for muscle function. In fact, magnesium is a key factor in about 300 different metabolic processes in the body, and it's really important for good sleep, for preventing constipation, and that these are factors and things that we see as we age start becoming a problem. Can't sleep, the toilet situation, when also what happens as we get older is people report they have to wake up in the middle of the night to go to the toilet because you need to your bladder needs to work, but adequate magnesium really can slow that down. Because what happens is when we drink water, that water has to be absorbed into our tissues, and it needs electrolytes, potassium, magnesium, sodium, for that to really work efficiently. So if you're drinking a lot of water during the day, it's just going to be sitting there, it's going to go through the bladder, and it's going to wake you up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and
disrupt your sleep then
disrupt
as
your
well.
sleep,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
going to set off a whole lot of other chain reactions. So getting that magnesium level adequate is really, really important.
Okay.
Light exposure, critically important, and people are afraid of the sun, and we really shouldn't be. That is what we need, early morning sun exposure. So yeah, paying attention to sleep, getting rid of the sugar or minimizing it as much as possible,
Okay.
especially the alcohol,
Yeah.
magnesium, and yeah, I think probably the most important thing is attitude.
Yes,
So having
yeah.
a positive outlook and having something to live for, something to strive towards is always important when we're trying to be aware of accelerating or decelerating the aging process. So
a reason to live and
a reason
keep
to
living.
live,
Absolutely. Yeah.
So whether that's getting involved with something that's bigger than your immediate circle sphere of influence is really important.
Fantastic. Well, Nicci, thank you so much. We can talk about this as always for a lot longer, but we need to cut it off there for now.
Sure.
We'll chat about it a bit more down the line. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.